The desert was quiet that evening, too quiet even for the dying sun. Miles away from the nearest settlement, Elias Crane worked the dry rope of his old well, the creek echoing across the cracked earth. He lived alone on that patch of dust and wind, a man trying to bury the ghosts of war and whiskey. The world had taken enough from him, and the desert, in its cruel honesty, asked for nothing more. But that night, something stirred. A faint rustle broke through the silence, not the wind, not the shifting sand. Elias turned sharply, his hand instinctively finding the worn handle of his rifle. And then he saw her. She stumbled into the faint circle of his lantern's light, a young woman, thin as a reed, her skin the color of sunburned copper. Her dark hair clung to her face, tangled with sand and blood. The patterns of her torn dress told Elias who she was before she ever spoke. Apache. For a long moment, neither moved. She stood, swaying, eyes blazing with the instinct of a cornered animal. Elias felt his heartbeat pounding in his ears, the old training whispering that she was the enemy. But something else, something deeper, told him otherwise. Without a word, he stepped aside and lowered a tin cup into the well. The rope groaned, the bucket splashed, and the water shimmered like mercy itself. He set the cup on the edge of the well and backed away. The girl hesitated, watching him through lashes heavy with dust. Then, trembling, she reached out and drank. It wasn't gratitude that passed through her eyes, it was disbelief, as if kindness was something long forgotten in her world. When she collapsed, moments later, Elias caught her before she hit the ground. Her skin was feverish, her pulse weak. He carried her to the porch, laid her on an old blanket, and stared at the stars above. He knew what harboring her meant. If settlers saw an Apache on his land, they'd call him a traitor. If the Apache found her here, they'd call him a kidnapper. Still, he sat beside her through the night, listening to her uneven breathing. When the morning came, he would find her gone, or so he hoped. But in the desert, nothing vanished without a consequence. As the first light crawled over the horizon, Elias noticed shapes on the ridge. 1, 2, 10. Then hundreds. Riders. Their spears glinted like the morning sun. The Apache had come. And Elias Crane, the man who only wanted peace, stood on the edge of a storm that would test everything he believed in. The morning wind carried the smell of dust and smoke. Elias stood motionless on his porch, eyes narrowing at the distant ridge. The shapes that had seemed like mirages at dawn were now clear, Apache warriors. At least 300 of them, mounted and silent, forming a wide half-circle around his ranch. Their faces were unreadable, their stillness more terrifying than any charge. Elias's fingers itched toward his rifle, but he stopped himself. He knew the futility of such a gesture. One wrong move, and the sky would rain arrows before he could even breathe. He lowered his hands slowly, making sure every movement was deliberate. The girl, the one he had saved, stirred behind him. Her breathing was shallow, her eyes half open, confusion clouding her gaze. Elias turned, kneeling beside her. "You need to stay calm," he said softly. "They're your people, aren't they?" Her lips moved, but the words came out in a whisper he couldn't understand. Still, the way she looked at the warriors told him everything. She recognized them, and they recognized her. The ground trembled as one of the riders broke from the formation and descended the ridge. His horse's hooves struck the dust like drums. He was older, his hair streaked with gray, his chest decorated with bones and feathers. His gaze fixed on Elias with the cold authority of a man who had buried more friends than enemies. When he reached the porch, he dismounted with quiet grace. He didn't speak. Instead, he looked down at the girl, then back at Elias. The silence between them was a blade, sharp, dangerous, and waiting for one of them to bleed. "I gave her water," Elias said finally. His voice steady, though his heart raced. "That's all." The warrior's eyes narrowed. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, with a slow nod, he turned and gestured to his men. None moved closer. None spoke. They simply stood there, watching, waiting. The message was clear. They would not kill him, not yet. He was being tested, though he didn't yet understand how. As the sun rose higher, Elias felt the weight of hundreds of eyes pressing down on him. He had survived wars, storms, and solitude, but this silence, this quiet judgment, was something else entirely. When night fell, the warriors were still there, their fires flickering on the horizon like stars born from the earth. Elias sat by his porch, unable to sleep, knowing that the desert had chosen him for something he wasn't ready to face. By the second dawn, Elias understood their intent. The Apache were not attacking, not retreating, they were watching. Every move he made, every sound, every glance toward the horizon was measured. He went about his day as if they weren't there, feeding the mule, tending the fence, drawing water from the well. But their eyes followed. And each time he looked up, he found their gaze steady and silent. At noon, he brought the girl a bowl of water and some bread. She sat propped against the wall, her strength returning little by little. Her name, he learned, was Naya when she spoke. Her voice carried both pride and fear, the strange mixture of someone torn between loyalty and uncertainty. "My father watches you," she said quietly, pointing toward the ridge. Elias followed her gesture and saw the elder warrior who had ridden down the day before. "He waits to see if your heart lies with peace or with blood." Elias smiled bitterly. Peace doesn't seem to have much land left to live on. Naya's gaze softened. Peace lives in the few who still believe it can. For a moment, the air between them felt lighter, almost human again. But then the wind shifted, and with it came a sound, the distant echo of horses. Elias froze. On the opposite side of the valley, a cloud of dust rose. Settlers armed, cautious, riding in formation. The timing couldn't have been worse. The Apache warriors noticed too. Their formation tightened. Spears lifted, bows drawn. The desert itself seemed to hold its breath. Elias's mind raced. If he went out to meet the settlers, the Apache might see it as betrayal. If he stayed silent, the settlers would think he'd turned. There was no right choice left. He stood between two worlds, one that feared him and one that tested him. The girl looked at him, eyes wide with something between fear and hope. "You must choose," she said. Elias glanced toward the oncoming riders, their rifles glinting in the sun. Then he looked back at the silent wall of Apache warriors. For the first time in years, his hands trembled. The test had begun. The wind had shifted again, carrying with it the scent of gun oil and horse sweat. Elias stood frozen on the porch, the weight of two armies pressing down on his chest. On one side, the Apache, their faces painted and unreadable. On the other, the settlers, grim and suspicious, dust rising around them like ghosts. The leader of the settlers, Sheriff Dalton, raised a hand in greeting or warning. His rifle hung at his side, but the men behind him already had theirs ready. "Crane," the sheriff called out. "We saw the smoke from miles off. You all right out here?" Elias hesitated. His voice felt like a fragile thing that could shatter if he used it wrong. "I'm fine," he replied, keeping his tone even. Dalton's gaze flicked past him, toward the ridge. His expression changed the moment he saw the Apache line. "Good God! "You've got company," he muttered. Then louder, "You've been harboring them, haven't you?" Elias took a slow step forward. "I found one girl near death. I gave her water. That's all." "That's all it takes," Dalton snapped. "You think they'll just ride off after that? You think they don't have scouts out here waiting for a signal? They'll burn your ranch, Elias. Then they'll burn ours." The settlers murmured behind him, voices low, uncertain. Fear was a language everyone spoke fluently. Elias's eyes drifted toward Naya, still weak but standing now at the doorway, clutching the porch post. Her expression said what words couldn't: say nothing, do nothing. But silence had a cost too. Dalton stepped closer. "We can't risk it. If they're watching, they'll think we're allies. You have to choose. Crane, are you with us or them?" The words hit harder than a bullet. Elias looked from the sheriff to the ridge, to the endless horizon that seemed suddenly too small for the truth he carried. "I'm not with anyone," he said finally. "Not anymore." Dalton's jaw tightened. "That's not an answer." Before Elias could respond, a single arrow whistled through the air and buried itself in the dirt between them. Not a threat, a warning. The sheriff cursed, raising his rifle, but Elias threw out his arm. "Hold your fire. They're not attacking." For a moment, chaos hung suspended in the air, balanced on the edge of a breath. One twitch, one spark, and the desert would drown in blood. And then stillness again. The Apache did not move. They simply watched. The test, Elias realized, was not about courage. It was about restraint. He lowered his voice. "Go back, Dalton. Tell your men to stay away from this land." "You've lost your damn mind," the sheriff said. But there was fear in his voice now. "They'll kill you." "Maybe," Elias answered. "But not today." Dalton spat into the dust, turned his horse, and rode off. The others followed reluctantly, their eyes still burning holes into Elias's back. When they were gone, the silence returned, heavy and eternal. From the ridge, the Apache watched. The day was not yet over. The judgment had only begun. That night, the sky turned the color of blood. A storm gathered in the distance, thunder rolling across the plains like an army marching unseen. Elias sat by the dying fire, Naya beside him, her face lit by the flickering light. "They think you're a traitor now," she said quietly. Elias gave a short, bitter laugh. "Wouldn't be the first time." She looked at him, studying his profile. The scars that ran from his temple to his jaw. "You were a soldier once." He nodded. "A long time ago. Fought for men who spoke of freedom while taking it from others. I left when I realized we were just painting different names on the same graves." Naya's eyes softened. "Then you understand why they test you. My people have lost too much to trust words." He stared into the flames. "And what happens if I fail?" "Then the fire burns everything," she said simply. The night deepened. From the ridge, faint lights began to glow, small torches rising one by one. Elias counted them silently. 10, 20, 50. They moved in a pattern, deliberate and haunting. "What are they doing?" he asked. "Sending a message," Naya whispered. "To the other camps. They're watching how you stand when the storm comes." Elias leaned back against the porch post, feeling the weight of her words. The storm winds began to howl, scattering sand across the yard. The flames guttered, fighting for air. He closed his eyes and thought of everything the desert had taken. From him, his friends, his faith, his reason to believe that peace could exist between men. Yet here, beside a woman who should have been his enemy, he felt something almost sacred. A faint sound broke through the wind, the cry of a hawk. Naya lifted her head. "It's the sign," she murmured. "They've seen your choice." Elias frowned. "My choice?" "You didn't draw your weapon," she said. "You didn't run." That's what they needed to know. He looked at her, realization dawning slow and heavy. "So what happens now?" Naya's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. "Now, they decide if you are worthy of their trust." Thunder cracked overhead. Rain began to fall, the first in months, washing the dust from his porch, from his hands, from the girl's torn dress. And as the sky opened, Elias Crane understood something he hadn't in years. Peace was never given. It had to be earned, one heartbeat at a time. The storm passed before dawn, leaving behind a silence thick enough to drown in. The desert smelled of wet dust and sage, a scent that felt almost holy after so many dry months. Elias stood at the edge of his porch, rain dripping from the brim of his hat. In the distance, the ridge was veiled in mist. But he knew they were still there, the watchers, the judges. Naya slept inside, her breathing steady now. The fever had broken, and the color was slowly returning to her face. Elias had barely slept. His mind circled the same questions again and again. What did they want of me? What am I supposed to prove? When the first light touched the horizon, a shadow appeared near the fence line, lone rider, cloaked in gray buckskin. He dismounted and walked forward without a word. His presence radiated quiet power. Elias recognized him from the ridge, the elder who had come down that first morning. Elias waited, heart hammering. The man stopped a few paces away. Between them lay only wet earth and unspoken judgment. The Apache elder lifted his hand, palm open. In it was a small bundle wrapped in deerskin. He placed it on the ground, then stepped back. Elias hesitated before picking it up. Inside lay a piece of charred wood carved with delicate markings, arrows, and a single line cut straight through the center. A sign? Elias asked quietly. The elder nodded once. Tu bahosoni, Isaid, voice deep huston. Naya's weak voice came from the doorway. He says it means water brings balance. The old man looked at her, then at Elias. Balance is the path between fear and anger, Naya translated. He wants to see if you can walk it. Before Elias could speak, the elder turned and mounted his horse again. As he rode away, more riders appeared on the ridge, figures etched against the rising sun. The message was clear. He was to follow. Naya clutched the doorframe. If you go, there is no turning back. Elias looked at her, then at the horizon. I never seem to, he said softly, and started walking. The desert swallowed him as he climbed toward the waiting tribe. Each step felt heavier, the air charged with meaning he didn't yet understand. When he reached the crest, the warriors parted silently, forming a corridor of eyes and spears. At the far end stood the elder, beside a great circle of stones darkened by fire. Elias stopped there, breath catching. This was no battlefield, was an altar, and whatever came next would decide whether he walked away as a friend or not at all. The circle was ancient scorched earth framed by stones, blackened from countless rituals. The wind whispered through them like voices from another time. Elias stepped closer, boots sinking into damp sand. The elder spoke again, his tone grave, measured. Naya's translation drifted across the wind. He says every man carries two fires, one that destroys, one that protects. You must show which burns in you. Elias frowned. How? The elder motioned to a nearby warrior, who brought forward a shallow bowl filled with ash and glowing coals. The heat bit at Elias's skin. He wants you to lift it, Naya said. "Hold it until he tells you to stop." Elias looked down at his hands, scarred and trembling. It was madness, but he understood. Pain was their language of truth. He took a deep breath and reached for the bowl. The metal scorched instantly, searing his palms, but he refused to drop it. Smoke curled upward, wrapping him in its bitter scent. Seconds stretched into minutes. Sweat poured down his face. The world narrowed to heat and heartbeat. When the elder finally raised his hand, Elias let the bowl fall. It hit the earth with a hiss. His palms were blistered, raw, but his gaze never left the old man's eyes. The warriors murmured among themselves. The elder approached, dipped his fingers into the ash, and traced a dark line across Elias's forehead. Naya translated softly, reverently. "He says the desert knows your fire now. You may leave it burning, or let it die." Elias staggered back, breathing hard. For the first time, the circle of warriors lowered their weapons. The elder extended his hand not in challenge, but in respect. When Elias clasped it, the pain in his palms flared. Yet something deeper settled inside him, acceptance, maybe even belonging. Naya stepped forward, eyes glistening. "You've earned their sign," she said. "But it means more than friendship. It means you stand between us and those who would bring war." Elias looked down at his burned hands, then to the vast sky stretching endlessly over the red earth. He realized the test was never about survival, it was about purpose. And as the tribe began to chant softly, their voices mingling with the sigh of the desert wind, Elias Crane understood peace was not found by avoiding fire, but by walking through it and refusing to let it turn you to ash. 3 days passed after the trial. The desert, which had once felt like an enemy, now breathed around Elias like a living thing. The Apache tribe no longer watched him with suspicion. Instead, they observed with quiet respect. Naya walked beside him often, teaching him the names of the winds, the patterns of the stars, the meaning of silence. Each night they sat near the fire as elders told stories of the old world when the rivers still ran deep and the buffalo thundered. Across endless plains, Elias listened, feeling the weight of history pressing against his chest. These weren't just tales. They were wounds disguised as words. He helped mend fences, carried water, and tended to horses with the younger warriors. Slowly, laughter began to replace the stillness. Yet, beneath it all, Elias sensed an unspoken tension. Something was coming. On the 4th morning, while he worked near the corral, he saw a faint column of smoke rising far to the north. His blood turned cold. That was no ritual. Fear, it was a signal. Moments later, Naya ran toward him, breathless. "Settlers," she said. "They've returned. Many horses, guns." Elias's heart sank. He knew Dalton wouldn't stay away forever. He'd seen fear in the man's eyes when he'd left, and fear always returns with fire. By midday, scouts confirmed an armed group was riding toward the valley. The Apache prepared quietly, efficiently. Spears sharpened, arrows stacked, horses watered. The air vibrated with the rhythm of an old bitter song, the one that came before war. Elias walked through the camp, torn between loyalty and dread. Every face he passed reminded him of the impossible truth: if he stayed, he'd be seen as a traitor to his own kind. If he left, he'd betray those who had finally accepted him. Naya stopped him near the edge of camp. "You can still go," she said, though her voice trembled. "No one would stop you." Elias shook his head. "And leave you to face them alone? No, I've seen enough blood to last 2 lifetimes." She looked at him with something like sorrow, something like pride. Then you'll stand between worlds again. You were never meant to belong to one." He smiled faintly. "Maybe not, but maybe that's the only way peace survives between worlds." Thunder rolled in the distance, though the sky was clear. It wasn't a storm. It was the sound of horses. The settlers were coming, and the desert, ancient and impartial, waited to see which fire would burn brighter this time. By dusk, the horizon shimmered with heat and movement. The settlers advanced in a slow, deliberate line, rifles glinting under the fading light. The Apache stood ready across the valley, silent as stone. Elias walked out between them alone. The wind was dry, the kind that carries every sound for miles. Each step he took left a mark in the dust, fragile and temporary. Behind him, the tribe waited. Ahead, the settlers fanned out, weapons steady. The world seemed to hold its breath. Sheriff Dalton rode forward first, his face grim and tired. "Crane," he said, voice echoing. "Didn't think I'd see you alive." Elias stopped a few paces away. "Didn't plan on it," he answered. Dalton's gaze flicked toward the ridge where the Apache watched. "You've chosen your side, then?" Elias shook his head. "There are no sides. Only people who've forgotten what they're fighting for." Dalton's jaw tightened. "You're talking like one of them?" "Maybe they're the only ones still listening," Elias said. His voice was calm, but his heart pounded. Every man behind Dalton shifted, tense fingers brushing triggers. "I can't let this stand," the sheriff muttered. "If we don't act now, they'll push us out of the valley for good." Elias took another step forward. "And if you act now, you'll lose everything you've built. You know what happens when men start shooting out of fear." Dalton hesitated. He looked at the Apache still, watching, waiting, and then back at Elias. "You think you can stop what's coming?" Elias lowered his voice. "Maybe not, but I can keep you from lighting the match." For a long moment, the two men just stared at each other, the air trembling between them. Then Elias bent down, drew a line in the dust with the edge of his boot, and stepped back. "No one crosses this line," he said. "Not them, not you. Anyone who does chooses blood." The sheriff looked down at the mark, then at the man who'd drawn it. The wind swept across the plain, blurring the line almost instantly, but not erasing it. Dalton's rifle lowered an inch. "You're a damn fool, Crane," he said quietly. "Maybe," Elias replied, "but at least I'll die for something that still matters." Behind him, Naya's voice rose softly in the Apache tongue, a prayer, or perhaps a warning carried by the wind. The desert listened. The sun bled into the horizon, and Elias Crane stood in the fading light, one man holding back to worlds that no longer remembered what peace felt like. The air thickened with waiting. The settlers' horses pawed at the ground, restless beneath the weight of their riders' fear. Across the valley, the Apache warriors stood unmoving, their spears reflecting the dying light. Between them, Elias Crane still held the center of the world, the line already half-raced by the wind. No one spoke. Even the desert seemed afraid to breathe. A hawk circled high above, crying once before vanishing into the glare. Elias felt sweat run down his temples. His burned palms throbbed with the rhythm of his heartbeat. He knew this silence could not last forever. Someone would break. It was only a matter of whose courage or whose fear gave out first. He turned slightly, meeting Dalton's eyes. The sheriff looked older than Elias remembered, his face lined by years of dust and doubt. "We don't have to do this," Elias said, voice low but carrying. "You can still walk away." Dalton shook his head. "You think peace comes easy, Crane? You think they'll let us keep our land?" Elias's tone sharpened. "No one ever keeps land out here. It keeps us." The words hung between them like smoke. For a heartbeat, something human flickered in Dalton's eyes. Regret. Maybe recognition, but then a nervous settler shifted behind him. The movement startled a horse. The animal reared, a rifle clattered, and a single shot cracked through the air. The bullet struck the ground near Elias's feet. Dust exploded upward. In an instant, Apache bows lifted, arrows drawn tight. The line trembled on the edge of chaos. Elias threw up his arms. "Stop! No one fires!" His shout cut through the roar of confusion. He moved toward the settlers, hands raised, standing fully between both sides. "It was an accident," he yelled. "Hold your fire." The Apache elder on the ridge lifted his staff, halting his warriors. Across the valley, Dalton barked at his men to lower their rifles. Slowly, unwillingly, the noise ebbed. The gun smoke drifted away, leaving only the rasp of wind and the echo of a single heartbeat. That could have ended everything. Elias turned back toward the tribe, meeting the elder's gaze. Then he looked to Dalton. "This is your last chance," he said hoarsely. "Go home. Tell your men the valley isn't yours to win or lose." For a long moment, the sheriff said nothing. Then he nodded once, barely perceptible. The settlers began to pull back, dust trailing behind their retreat. No victory cry, followed only weary silence. The first stars appeared as the sun sank. Elias stood alone in the center, his shadow stretching across the line that was already fading back into sand. Night claimed the valley, soft and heavy. Fires flickered along the ridge as the Apache prepared their camp. Elias sat apart, his hands wrapped in strips of cloth, his body shaking from exhaustion. Naya approached quietly and knelt beside him, offering a bowl of water. "You stopped them," she said. Her voice carried awe and sadness in equal measure. "For now," he answered. "Peace is never more than a pause between storms." She looked toward the horizon where the settlers had vanished. "They'll come again. I know." He sipped the water, then set the bowl down. "But maybe next time they'll remember what almost happened here and think twice." The elder approached, moving slowly, each step deliberate. In his hand was a necklace made of carved bone and turquoise. He placed it around Elias's neck, the cool weight pressing against his chest. Naya translated softly, "He says the desert saw your heart. You gave water, and you gave fire, and both you used to save life. You are now Kchen one who stands between." Elias bowed his head. "Tell him I'll wear it with honor." The elder smiled faintly, then walked away into the darkness. The night wind stirred the ashes of the extinguished fires, scattering them across the plain like gray snow. Elias rose and looked east. The horizon glimmered faintly with the promise of dawn. For the first time in years, he felt no urge to run, no thirst for silence. The land around him was still wild, still cruel, but it was alive, and he was a part of it. Naya stepped beside him. "What will you do now?" He thought for a long time before answering. "Build, grow, keep the line from being drawn again." She smiled. "Then maybe the desert will remember your name." Elias watched as the first light broke over the ridges, painting the wet sand gold. The wind carried the scent of rain and cedar, the sound of distant drums fading with the night. He touched the necklace at his chest, feeling the warmth beneath the cool stone, and whispered into the dawn, "Let this place be more than dust and blood. Let it be home." And as the sun rose over the whispering plains, Elias Crane, soldier, rancher, stranger, became what the desert had always needed. A man who chose peace and dared to keep it alive. The first shot cracked through the morning silence like a whip. A buzzard fled the rocks, its wings slicing through the pale dawn sky. Dalton dropped to one knee, revolver drawn, eyes narrowing at the figure struggling in the sand ahead, a woman, chained to an iron stake half buried in the dirt. Her wrists were raw, caked in dried blood and dust. The desert wind tugged at her dark hair, streaked with sweat and grit. She wasn't begging. She wasn't crying. She just stared at him, a stare so fierce it could have cut through steel. Dalton holstered his gun and stepped closer, boots crunching against the parched earth. The remnants of a campfire smoked nearby, signs of the slavers who had left her there to die. He'd been tracking them for 2 days. They were gone now, but their cruelty lingered like a ghost in the heat. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, voice low, steady. "Then go," she spat. Her voice was cracked but strong. "Leave me. I'd rather die here than owe a man like you." Dalton's jaw tightened. He knelt beside the stake, pulling a knife from his belt. The metal glinted as the first sunbeams spilled over the horizon. With one hard strike, the blade cut through the chain. The clatter echoed across the dunes, the sound of freedom, or something pretending to be it. She didn't thank him. Didn't even move at first. Her body trembled from exhaustion, but her eyes stayed sharp, full of defiance. "You're free," he said quietly. "No," she hissed, pushing herself up. "You just traded one kind of chain for another." Dalton straightened, slipping the knife back into its sheath. He could have left her, should have. But the sight of her, beaten, burned, yet unbroken, hit something deep inside him. A wound he'd been carrying far longer than the scars on his hands. A distant rumble rolled through the desert horses. Slavers returning. Dalton's hand went to his revolver again. "Move," he ordered. "They'll be back. I told you." "Then die stubborn," he snapped, grabbing her arm. She twisted free and snatched the revolver from his holster in one swift motion. Her aim was unsteady, but her eyes were sure. "I don't need saving." The horses grew louder, shouts in the distance. Dalton's pulse quickened. "Then shoot me," he said, stepping closer, voice hard as gravel. "But if you don't, we run. Now." For a heartbeat, the desert froze. The wind held its breath. Then she lowered the gun. They ran. Sand exploded under their feet as the first riders crested the ridge behind them. The rising sun spilling red light over the endless dunes, and the chase began. The desert came alive behind them, hooves pounding. Shouts rising like thunder over the dunes. Dalton pushed forward, his breath burning in his chest. Sand exploding beneath his boots. Beside him, Kiona ran with a strength that didn't match her starved frame. Her bare feet cutting across the rocks. The chains still clanged against her wrist. A cruel reminder that freedom never came clean. "Down," Dalton barked, yanking her behind a cluster of boulders. Bullets hissed through the air, striking the sand around them. The scent of gunpowder mixed with heat, with fear. Kiona pressed against the stone, gasping, her eyes sharp and wild. "Why do they chase you like a dog?" she demanded. "They're not chasing me," he answered. "They're coming for you." She gave a bitter laugh. "Then you should have left me to die." Dalton peeked around the rock, 5 riders, closing in. He counted their shadows against the morning light. No time to argue. He reloaded his revolver, movements precise, silent. "You ever shoot?" "I've killed," she said flatly. Dalton met her eyes. There was no bluff in them. Just truth, old and hard. He handed her a spare revolver from his belt. "Then help me make sure we live long enough to hate each other later." The first rider appeared over the ridge. Dalton fired once, clean, sharp. The man toppled backward, hoarse screaming as it crashed into the sand. The rest scattered, circling, shouting orders in Spanish. Kiona fired next. The shot missed but forced them to split again. Dalton moved, rolling behind another boulder, firing twice more. The air filled with dust and noise. When the echoes finally faded, 3 men rode off into the distance, dragging the wounded with them, to lay still in the sand. Dalton lowered his weapon, breathing heavy. Kiona stood, her hands shaking slightly, eyes locked on the fallen. "You didn't kill them all." "I killed enough," Dalton said. "The desert will finish the rest." She didn't look convinced. Blood smeared her arm, not her own, a graze from a passing bullet. He reached out, but she pulled away. "Don't touch me. You'll bleed out if you don't. I've bled before." Her defiance burned hotter than the sun. Dalton stepped back, jaw tight. The desert stretched endless ahead of them, shimmering with heat. Somewhere beyond those dunes, there was water, shelter, maybe a chance. He turned north. "We move before they circle back." Kiona didn't move. "You keep giving orders like you own me." "I don't," he said quietly. "But if you stay here, they'll own your corpse." For a moment, her gaze softened, just barely. Then she started walking, silent, the broken chain glinting in the light. Dalton followed a few paces behind. As the sun climbed higher, their shadows stretched long across the sand, 2 shapes bound not by trust, but by survival. And behind them, vultures began to gather. By midday, the desert turned white with heat. Every breath felt like swallowing dust. They had walked for hours without a word, the silence between them heavy, almost physical. Dalton's canteen was half empty. Kiona refused to take a sip when he offered it. Pride, he thought, would kill her faster than thirst. They reached what had once been a trading post, now just a skeleton of wood and wind. The roof sagged, the door hung by a single hinge. A dry well sat in the middle of the yard, filled with nothing but sand and old bones. Still, it was shelter. Dalton dropped his saddlebag and scanned the horizon. "We'll rest here till dark." Kiona didn't answer. She sank against a wall, her breathing shallow, her wrists raw and cracked. He crouched near the well, pretending to check for water, just to give her space. "You ever been out this far?" he asked finally. "I was taken farther," she replied. Her voice was distant, almost detached. "Beyond the border, past the mountains. I lost count of the days. Chains don't measure time." Dalton looked up. "And yet you're still standing." Her eyes met his, sharp as flint. "You think that makes me free?" He didn't reply. The question hit harder than any bullet. He turned away, pulling a small cloth bundle from his pack, dried meat, stale bread. He handed her half. She stared at it for a long moment before taking it. They ate in silence. The air shimmered, thick with heat and unspoken things. "You could have left me there," she said at last. "Would have saved yourself trouble." "Maybe," Dalton said. "But I've left enough people behind already." Kiona studied him. "You sound like a man who's trying to wash blood from his hands." He almost smiled, though there was nothing funny about it. "You don't wash it off. You just learn to live with the stain." She didn't look away. "And you think helping me makes you clean?" "No," he said. "But it's a start." The wind picked up, whistling through the broken boards. Kiona shifted, wincing as she moved her injured arm. Dalton hesitated, then tore a strip from his shirt and stepped closer. "Let me wrap that," he said quietly. This time, she didn't refuse. He cleaned the wound as best he could, his hands steady but careful. She watched him, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she murmured, "You're too gentle for a man who kills." Dalton met her gaze. "Maybe that's why I kill." They sat in silence again. The only sound, the whisper of the wind through the empty well. Outside, the sun began to sink, turning the desert gold. For the first time, Kiona spoke softly, almost to herself. "Freedom isn't something you give, it's something you take." Dalton nodded slowly. "Then take it. I won't stop you." She looked toward the horizon, endless, merciless, and beautiful. "I will," she said, "when I'm strong enough to walk alone." Night fell fast in the desert. One moment, the sky was bronze, the next black velvet, scattered with cold stars. Dalton built a small fire behind the trading post ruins, keeping it low, hidden from the open sands. The flames whispered instead of roared. That was how he liked it. Noise drew things, men, memories, ghosts. Kiona sat a few feet away, her knees pulled to her chest. The bandage he'd made was already dark with blood, but she didn't seem to care. Her eyes were fixed on the flames, as if reading them like an old story. Dalton chewed a strip of jerky, his hand near his revolver. Old habits never died. He'd spend too many nights like this, waiting for something to come out of the dark. "You don't sleep?" she asked quietly. He shook his head. "Sleep's for people with peace." A faint smile crossed her lips. "Then neither of us will rest tonight." The fire cracked. Somewhere far off, a coyote called, a sound like laughter echoing through the emptiness. Dalton's mind drifted, unbidden, to another fire long ago, flames rising high, smoke choking the night, and screams that no wind could carry away. He'd been younger then, uniform crisp, orders clear, burn the village, leave nothing alive. He gripped the edge of his coat until his knuckles turned white. Kiona's gaze flicked toward him. "Your hands shake when you remember." He looked up, startled. "You don't know what I remember." "I don't have to," she said. "I've seen that look before. The men who carried me wore it too." Dalton turned away, jaw clenched. "I'm not like them." "Not anymore," she corrected softly. The words hit harder than she knew. The desert wind picked up, scattering the firelight across her face. Dalton saw it then. Not just the scars, but the strength beneath them. She wasn't a victim. She was a survivor, built from broken edges. He reached for his rifle, checking the barrel. "We move before sunrise." Slavers might have sent word. Kiona tilted her head. "And if it's not slavers chasing you?" Dalton froze. She caught it, the small hesitation. "There's someone else out there," she said. "Someone you're running from." He met her eyes, and for a moment the firelight reflected something raw, fear, regret, something heavier than guilt. "Not running," he said finally. "Just waiting." "For what?" "For the past to find me." A long silence followed. The flames flickered low, the cold creeping in around them. Kiona drew her blanket tighter, but her eyes never left him. Finally, she said, "When it does, will you face it or run again?" Dalton stared into the dying fire. "Depends who's holding the gun." A gust of wind snuffed the flame. Darkness swallowed them whole, and somewhere beyond the dunes, a horse neighed distant, but too close to be a dream. The sound came again, hooves, muffled but certain. Dalton's instincts snapped awake. He motioned for silence, his hand already gripping the revolver. Kiona froze, eyes wide, her breath barely stirring the cold air. Beyond the ruined wall, faint lights flickered, lanterns swaying in the dark. The riders had found them. Dalton whispered, "Stay low." She nodded once, her face ghostly in the starlight. He crawled to the edge of the crumbled doorway, peering through a gap in the boards. 4 men, no, 5. One held a torch, another scanned the ruins with a rifle slung across his back. The horses snorted, restless. They hadn't seen the fire's ashes yet, luck or mercy. Either would run out fast. Dalton pointed toward the back wall. "There's a gully behind the post. Leads to the ridge." Kiona frowned. "And what about you?" "I'll slow them down." Her whisper turned sharp. "You think I'll just run while you die?" Before he could answer, a beam of lantern light sliced through the crack, catching a shimmer, the metal of her broken chain. "Over here!" Someone shouted. Dalton fired first. The shot echoed like thunder, dropping the torchbearer in a burst of flame and dust. Chaos erupted. Horses reared, men cursed, bullets tore through the walls. Kiona ducked as splinters rained down. Dalton moved like a ghost, reloading, firing, shifting positions between the shadows. He caught sight of her crawling toward him, clutching the fallen man's rifle. "Stay down," he barked. "Not this time," she snapped back. She rose to one knee, aimed, and fired a clean shot that hit the nearest rider square in the chest. He fell without a sound. Dalton blinked. She didn't miss twice. The fight raged for minutes that felt like hours. One of the attackers circled behind the ruins. Dalton caught him by the ankle as he crept through the rubble, dragging him down and smashing the butt of his revolver into the man's jaw. Another rider charged from the front, firing wildly. Kiona rolled, grabbed the dropped pistol, and emptied it into the horse's flank. The beast screamed, collapsing, crushing its rider beneath. Silence returned, broken only by the crackle of dying embers and the labored breath of 2 survivors. Dalton rose slowly, scanning the horizon. 2 horses fled into the dark. The rest lay still. Kiona leaned against the wall, chest heaving, hair clinging to her sweat-slicked face. "You said you'd slow them down," she muttered. "You didn't say you'd kill them all." Dalton holstered his revolver. "I didn't plan to." He knelt beside one of the bodies, searching the pockets. A small insignia glimmered, not the mark of slavers. Government issue. Kiona noticed the change in his expression. "Who are they?" Dalton closed his fist around the badge. "Men I used to ride with." Her eyes darkened. "Then it's true, your past has found you." He didn't answer. Instead, he picked up the nearest saddlebag, slung it over his shoulder, and met her gaze. "We move, now." The sun rose red that morning, bleeding over the dunes like an open wound. Dalton and Kiona moved in silence, their boots leaving a crooked trail through the sand. The fight had left its mark, smoke on their clothes, dust in their lungs, death in their eyes. By the time the sky turned gold, they found a cluster of rocks that offered shade. Dalton dropped his gear, kneeling beside a patch of stubborn sagebrush. Kiona sank against a stone, her breathing rough. The silence between them wasn't angry now. It was tired. The kind of silence that grows after too much has been said with bullets. Dalton poured the last of the water into the tin cup and handed it to her. She hesitated, then drank, eyes never leaving his face. "You knew them," she said finally. "The men last night." Dalton stared at the horizon. "Once soldiers." He nodded. "Used to ride under Captain Ward, Arizona Regiment. We were told we were protecting settlers. But the truth..." He stopped, the words clawing at his throat. Kiona waited. He took a deep breath. "We weren't protecting anyone. We were cleaning the land, burning villages, driving out anyone who didn't belong to our idea of civilized. They said it was duty. I called it justice, until I saw the smoke. Kiona's eyes narrowed, but she didn't interrupt. There was a raid near San Pedro, Dalton continued, voice low. A camp of Apache families. Not warriors. Just people. We surrounded them at dawn, same way those bastards chained you. I followed orders. I lit the torch. He looked down at his hands, as if expecting to still see the soot there. When the wind shifted, I saw a woman trying to carry a child through the fire. Couldn't have been older than you were then. I froze. Ward shot her himself. Silence. Even the desert seemed to hold its breath. Kiona's voice came quiet, steady. So now you're running from ghosts? Dalton shook his head. No. Ghosts don't chase you. Men do. And they wear your uniform. He met her gaze. They'll keep coming. They think I betrayed them when I walked away. You did. Her words hit like a blade, but there was no malice in them, just truth. He sighed, leaning back against the rock. You ever wish you could trade memory for sleep? Kiona looked toward the sun, her expression unreadable. Memory is what keeps us from becoming like them. Dalton studied her, the way her eyes reflected the light. Fierce and alive despite everything. You talk like someone who's already forgiven the world. She gave a bitter smile. Forgiveness is for the living. I just haven't died yet. For a while, they said nothing. The wind moved over the sand, carrying the faint scent of smoke and sage. Finally, Dalton stood. We head east before noon. There's a canyon that cuts through the ridge. Water, maybe shelter. Kiona rose slowly, wincing from the pain in her side. And after that, he paused. After that, I figure the past will find us again. It always does. The sun rose red that morning, bleeding over the dunes like an open wound. Dalton and Kiona moved in silence, their boots leaving a crooked trail through the sand. The fight had left its mark, smoke on their clothes, dust in their lungs, death in their eyes. By the time the sky turned gold, they found a cluster of rocks that offered shade. Dalton dropped his gear, kneeling beside a patch of stubborn sagebrush. Kiona sank against a stone, her breathing rough. The silence between them wasn't angry now. It was tired. The kind of silence that grows after too much has been said with bullets. Dalton poured the last of the water into the tin cup and handed it to her. She hesitated, then drank, eyes never leaving his face. You knew them, she said finally. The men last night. Dalton stared at the horizon. Once soldiers. He nodded. Used to ride under Captain Ward, Arizona Regiment. We were told we were protecting settlers. But the truth. He stopped, the words clawing at his throat. Kiona waited. He took a deep breath. We weren't protecting anyone. We were cleaning the land, burning villages, driving out anyone who didn't belong to our idea of civilized. They said it was duty. I called it justice, until I saw the smoke. Kiona's eyes narrowed, but she didn't interrupt. There was a raid near San Pedro, Dalton continued, voice low. A camp of Apache families. Not warriors. Just people. We surrounded them at dawn, same way those bastards chained you. I followed orders. I lit the torch. He looked down at his hands, as if expecting to still see the soot there. When the wind shifted, I saw a woman trying to carry a child through the fire. Couldn't have been older than you were then. I froze. Ward shot her himself. Silence. Even the desert seemed to hold its breath. Kiona's voice came quiet, steady. So now you're running from ghosts? Dalton shook his head. No, ghosts don't chase you. Men do, and they wear your uniform. He met her gaze. They'll keep coming. They think I betrayed them when I walked away. You did. Her words hit like a blade, but there was no malice in them, just truth. He sighed, leaning back against the rock. You ever wish you could trade memory for sleep? Kiona looked toward the sun, her expression unreadable. Memory is what keeps us from becoming like them. Dalton studied her, the way her eyes reflected the light. Fierce and alive despite everything. You talk like someone who's already forgiven the world. She gave a bitter smile. Forgiveness is for the living. I just haven't died yet. For a while, they said nothing. The wind moved over the sand, carrying the faint scent of smoke and sage. Finally, Dalton stood. We head east before noon. There's a canyon that cuts through the ridge. Water, maybe shelter. Kiona rose slowly, wincing from the pain in her side. And after that, he paused. After that, I figure the past will find us again. It always does. The sun was already bleeding. Across the stone when Dalton realized the canyon had gone silent. No wind, no bird cry. Only the crunch of their boots and the heavy pulse in his ears. He raised a hand. Stop. Kiona froze, eyes narrowing. She felt it too, the kind of quiet that means someone's watching. The air was thick with heat, dust trembling like smoke. Dalton's fingers slid toward his revolver as his gaze tracked the cliffs. Nothing moved. Then, a small sound, a rock tumbling from above. Move, he barked, pulling her down just as a bullet tore through the air. Slamming into the wall beside them, dust exploded. Another shot followed, echoing down the gorge like thunder. Kiona rolled behind a boulder, rifle ready. Dalton crouched beside her, breath ragged. The attackers were hidden high among the rocks. Invisible, but close enough for the echoes to sting. They're driving us into the open, Kiona whispered, scanning the ledges. Not if we move first, Dalton muttered. His eyes flicked to a narrow path curling up the canyon side. Dangerous, but their only chance. Cover me, she said, before he could stop her. She darted out, quick as a spark, scrambling toward higher ground. Dalton fired upward, not to hit, just to make noise, to make them hesitate. Dust rained over him. The air smelled of gunpowder and stone. Then came silence again, broken only by the wind returning. Kiona's voice echoed faintly from above. Clear. He climbed after her, boots slipping on gravel. When he reached the top, he found her standing by the edge of the cliff. Rifle still raised, face sharp and calm. Below, the canyon stretched endless and golden, the ambushers already gone. They weren't soldiers, Dalton said, scanning the empty ledges. Traders, maybe bounty men. Or ghosts, Kiona murmured, lowering the rifle. Out here, it's hard to tell the difference. For a moment, they stood together, breathing hard. The world wide and blinding around them. Then Kiona nodded, toward the far ridge. There's water ahead. We move before dark. Dalton followed, the ache in his shoulder returning, but he said nothing. The light was dying fast, and the desert always whispered louder at night. By dusk, they reached the place she'd seen. A narrow hollow where water trickled from stone into a small pool. The air was cooler here, shadows stretching long and soft. Kiona knelt first, touching the water as if testing whether it was real. Dalton watched her, his breath unsteady, dust caking every line of his face. You're burning up, she said quietly. He tried to laugh, but it came out as a cough. Just the heat. She shook her head, tearing a strip from her sleeve and dipping it in the water. You should have said something. When she pressed the cloth to his shoulder, He winced, but didn't pull away. The wound wasn't deep, but infection had already taken hold. He'd ignored it too long. The silence between them softened. Water dripped. Crickets began their low hum. "You could have left me," he said. "I thought about it," she replied, voice dry but not cold. "But then I remembered, you still owe me for those chains." Dalton smiled faintly, the first real one in days. "Guess I do." For a while, they sat in quiet, the sound of the stream echoing faintly through the canyon. Kiona stared at her reflection, rippling and uncertain. "When the sun rises, I'll go my own way," she said finally. "You should too." Dalton nodded. He wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Some things didn't need fighting. As night fell, stars spilled over the canyon's rim. The pool shimmered like glass. Kiona lay against the stone, eyes half closed. Dalton kept watch by the fire, shadows flickering over his tired face. He glanced at her, the woman who had cursed him, defied him, saved him. Somewhere between anger and respect, something unspoken had begun to take root. The desert was quiet again, but not empty. It listened. Tomorrow, they would walk different roads. But tonight, for the first time, they weren't running. The morning broke pale and quiet, the kind of light that feels like forgiveness. Dalton and Kiona climbed the last ridge in silence, every step a reminder of how far they'd come. Below them stretched a wide valley washed in gold, and at its heart, a river, silver and alive. Kiona stopped first. Her breath caught. "Water," she whispered, as if afraid it would vanish if named aloud. Dalton smiled faintly. "Looks like the world still has mercy left." They descended slowly, the canyon behind them shrinking into shadow. The sand turned to clay beneath their boots, and the scent of damp earth replaced the dry burn of dust. For the first time in days, the wind felt cool. At the bank, Kiona knelt and touched the water. Ripples broke across her reflection, scattering her face into fragments of light. Dalton stood behind her, shoulders slumped, eyes distant, as if he saw something more than the river. "You're free now," he said quietly. "No chains, no debts." Kiona looked up at him, her expression unreadable. "And you? What are you now?" He hesitated, a man trying to remember what he was before the killing. They stayed like that for a while, no words, just wind and water. Kiona filled a small pouch, her movements deliberate. Dalton crouched, washing the dried blood from his hands. It ran red, then clear. "I'll head north," she said. "My people might still be there." Dalton nodded, though part of him wanted to ask her to stay. He didn't. Some kinds of love survive only in distance. The river shimmered under the rising sun, its surface catching the sky's reflection, a mirror between two worlds. Kiona turned to him, eyes softer now. "Thank you for cutting those chains." Dalton met her gaze. "You broke the rest yourself." A faint smile touched her lips. Then she turned and walked along the shore, her figure small against the vast bright morning. Dalton watched until she became a shape among the light, until even her shadow was gone. Dalton stood by the river long after she'd vanished, the sound of water filling the space's words. Couldn't. The breeze carried the scent of wet grass and distant rain. He hadn't realized how heavy silence could be when it wasn't shared. He found a flat stone and sat, letting the current wash over his boots. For the first time, he didn't think about running from past, from guilt, from himself. The river moved slow but sure, carving its path through the earth, same as it always had. Maybe that was what freedom looked like, not escape, but direction. He pulled something from his pocket, the small silver pendant. Kiona had left beside the fire. Its surface was scratched, the chain broken. He turned it in his fingers, watching the light play across it. Then he placed it in the water and let it drift downstream. A small piece of the past carried away. The sky deepened from gold to violet. The last warmth of the sun touched the ridges behind him, and night began to creep from the east. Dalton rose, his shadow stretching across the sand like a second man walking beside him. He took one last look at the horizon, at the faint trail of footprints leading away, then started in the opposite direction. Every step felt lighter, as if something inside him had finally let go. The desert was quiet again, but no longer empty. The wind moved through the grass like a whisper, soft and endless. Somewhere far off, a coyote called, its voice thin and lonely against the vast sky. Dalton didn't turn back. He didn't need to. The past was behind him, the river between them, and ahead, the open land, wide and waiting. He walked until the night swallowed him, until the stars came alive overhead. Then he stopped, looked up, and smiled faintly, not at what was lost, but at what remained. Freedom, he realized, wasn't in the cutting of chains. It was in learning to live without them.